Welcome to a new SiteGround video. My name is Cal Evans, and today we're going to learn about front-end optimization and why it's important for your website. One of the ways that we make websites faster is by optimizing the front end. Once the browser gets your site, we want it to display quickly. The tools and techniques we use for that are lumped together and called front-end optimization. By properly ordering the different pieces of your website, you can affect the overall loading and display speed of your website. Now, not all elements are created equal. Some are more important and some are less. The important pieces are the ones that affect the things the users will see immediately when your website is displayed. We used to call these above the fold, a term we borrowed from the newspaper industry. These days, however, we just call them visible elements. If your web page loads and the first thing a user sees is a full screen graphic with a headline in a custom font, then there are four things that are important. First, the HTML. That comes in on the original request and everything else is loaded because of it. Second is the image. Third is the CSS necessary to display this particular image and text. And fourth are the fonts. Now, what exactly can you do to optimize each of these parts? Let's look at the most important optimization techniques that you can carry out. First, let's optimize the HTML. The HTML comes in on the initial request, and everything else is loaded because of it. The only optimization you can really do with HTML is to enable compression. Now, if you're curious about compression, check out our video, Brotli versus gzip. There's a link to it in the description below. Second, the image. Since the image is high up in the HTML, it will be one of the first things pulled. Now, you need to make sure that in this case, you don't lazy load this image, as that will slow down the displaying of the image. As of WordPress 5.9, the first 3 images on any page are not lazy loaded, while the rest are. Now, speaking of images, let's talk about image types for a second. WebP is the new image type on the block. It was developed by Google, and it provides superior lossless and lossy compression for images on the web. Using WebP, you can create smaller images and, well, that makes your website faster. WebP lossless images are 26% smaller in size compared to PNGs. WebP lossy images are 25 to 34% smaller than comparable JPEGs. Third, optimize the CSS necessary to display the image and the text. Now, not all CSS is created equal. While the trend has been to gang all of your CSS into one file, minimize it and load it once, that might not be your best strategy. Using most web browsers, you can load your web page and have the browser identify the snippets of CSS that are critical. If you're looking to shave a few microseconds off your display time, then look into breaking your CSS into critical and everything else. Fourth, optimize the loading of the fonts. Most browsers will display the text in your browser's default font until the font file is loaded and then redisplay it in the selected font. The problem is this can cause an annoying flash of unstyled text. This can also cause display shift, and search engines have already said that too much display shift will cost you on your search engine rankings. To help eliminate this problem, you can preload the important fonts. This puts them at the top of the list of things for the browser to load. Now, don't preload all your fonts because this is just going to slow your page display down. Fifth, defer render blocking JavaScript. All of the techniques we've discussed so far have worked together to allow the site to paint faster. That's an important goal, but probably the biggest blocker to websites loading and painting fast is JavaScript. When JavaScript is loaded, it's parsed and executed. This means if you have a script in your HTML's head tag, the parsing of your HTML is paused, the script is loaded, and then executed, and then the paint can resume. This will slow down your paint, even if your script doesn't actually execute anything. To resolve this, we use the defer attribute on any non-critical JavaScript. By adding the defer attribute to your script tag, you tell the browser to load the JavaScript in the background and deal with it after the HTML is parsed. Not all JavaScript can be deferred. There are some sites that require JavaScript to be executed before the screen starts painting. In this case, defer only the scripts that are non-critical. How do you know which JavaScripts are critical or non-critical? Well, if you're a programmer, you can insert debug statements and step through the process and see which code is critical and which is not by analyzing what the script is doing. If, on the other hand, you're not a programmer, you can do what most programmers really do. Instead of the difficult process described above, most of us just experiment. Most programmers will start by adding a defer to each script, one script at a time, and see if that breaks anything. If it doesn't break anything, we move on to the next one. Trial and error is still the best way to test these things. However, do not do trial and error in production. I can't stress that enough. If you're with a top-tier web host like SiteGround, you can set up a copy of your site as a staging site. Set up your staging site and experiment there. Now, most of you watching these videos are not programmers. This doesn't mean you can't take some of these actions. If you have built your site in WordPress, there are a variety of WordPress plugins that will give you each one of these options. However, there is one plugin that does all of the previous actions together. This plugin is the SiteGround Optimizer plugin. Navigate to the SiteGround Optimizer dashboard and then click on Front End. From there, you will see 3 tabs: CSS, JavaScript, and General. With these, we can optimize the different parts of the front end with just a flick of a switch. If you go to the CSS tab, you will be able to do things like combine or minify the CSS on your site. Additionally, you can set your site to preload the combined CSS file. While minification usually doesn't hurt anything, some sites will break when you combine the CSS files into a single file. If you run into this problem, the solution is to exclude some of the CSS files from combination. To do this, just click the pencil next to the Exclude from CSS combination. Then, in the drop-down, select all the files you don't want combined. The same option is available for excluding files from minification if that's causing you a problem. We've already discussed strategies for optimizing your CSS. Combining and preloading should be used with caution if you've already optimized your CSS. Step carefully, test often. When you go to the JavaScript tab, you'll be able to apply similar actions to optimize your JavaScript. Now, as with CSS, minify almost always is safe, but combine needs to be used with caution. I almost always turn on defer render blocking. Now, if you have scripts that need to load normally, you can exclude them from the defer render blocking. Just click the pencil next to Exclude from Deferral of Render Blocking JS and select the scripts to exclude. Finally, in the General tab, you'll be able to apply general optimizations to your front end similar to the ones that we've applied to CSS and JavaScript. Minifying HTML, unlike CSS and JavaScript, may actually cause your site to break. If you want to use this feature, test it first in staging to make sure it doesn't break before implementing in production. Web fonts optimization is an option that you need to turn on unless doing so breaks something on your site. We've already talked about font preloading. The SiteGround Optimizer plugin is the easiest place to enable it for all the fonts on your site. As you can see, the SiteGround Optimizer plugin is a must-have for any site hosted on SiteGround, with no coding And with only using the SiteGround Optimizer plugin, I was able to increase my podcast's Google page score from 89 to 95. That's a significant jump. Front-end optimization isn't where I would start when I'm trying to speed up my site. However, when you've tweaked the back end as much as you can usually squeeze a little more speed out of your site with the tweaks we've talked about in this video. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite front-end optimization technique for WordPress sites? Leave me a comment below so we can share it with everyone. Hey, I want to thank you for joining us today as we learned. I hope you found it both educational and interesting. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you click on the subscribe button on your screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the bell icon also so that YouTube will notify you every time we release a new video. Finally, follow us on social media to stay updated about all the news, trending content, and resources for successful website management that we share. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.